Hi, my name is Ian Foxwell. Most of you won't know me because I did most of my racing in the 80s and 90s. But in that time, among other things, I won several national championships. I worked at 10th Technology when the Predator was first manufactured. And I wrote the initial set of rules for what the world now calls touring car racing. I also designed and made the very first RC tyre warmers at that time. More recently, I conceived the suspension system that Willspeed have now put into production and that has become known as the Fast Fox. So in this short film, I'll explain what my thinking was behind the design, why it isn't just a gimmick, and why your car can be quicker when you're using it. So I think everyone knows that car design is a compromise. You have to give up performance in some areas to gain performance back in others. So the skill is in deciding which things you can afford to let slide and which things you want to optimise. When you start a design from scratch, you have to start with some principles around which you will work, around which you're going to base the design. And for me, these would be the weight is bad, a chassis should be stiff, the centre of gravity should be low, and related to that, the moment of inertia should be minimised as well. You will notice here that I didn't mention drive chain or roll centres, dampers, suspension, all the things you normally think of when you're thinking of a car design, because that's all just detail that evolves as a design progresses. But the fundamentals that I've listed are much harder to change and are essentially baked in from the beginning. So before I move on to the points that the Fox suspension is attempting to optimise, that of a low centre of gravity and a low moment of inertia, let me briefly talk about weight and chassis stiffness. We all know that there are times when adding some weight strategically can help with your setup. After all, there is a whole industry based around lumps of brass that you can bolt on to pretty much any part of your car. And where a flexible chassis is fast. It's just that at a fundamental level, I consider these as bad. Weight just requires power and grip to move. And chassis flex, well, at worst is unpredictable, but even at best, it's still an uncontrolled spring. So I like to start with the notion that these are bad. I know there will be at least one person out there right now that is shouting at the screen that I'm saying weight is bad, and yet the Fast Fox conversion is adding weight. And I hear you. In the perfect world, it wouldn't have been any heavier. But let me take you right back to where I began and point out that design is about selecting the compromises that you want to accept. And to me, the benefits that I'm going to go on to detail in a moment more than offset the drawback of the small increase in weight. So let's talk about the things the Fox suspension is trying to improve. That of the centre of gravity and the moment of inertia. Basically, the centre of gravity is the point around which you can balance the car. And the moment of inertia is a measure of kind of how far apart all that mass is. The classic demonstration for moment of inertia is swinging a hammer around holding its head, as opposed to holding it by the handle. A hammer like this, for example. So it's much easier to rotate the hammer when you hold it by its head as opposed to doing the same movement but holding it by the handle. It's the same weight, it's going through the same range of motion, it's just that it's much easier to move it when you hold it by its head than it is by the handle. That's an example of a low moment of inertia. So it takes less force to swing the hammer when I'm holding its head rather than hold it by a handle. So, relating this to an RC car, the force required to change direction is provided by the grip of the tyres. A high moment of inertia will require a higher force to overcome it. So everything we can do to centralise the mass, reduce the moment of inertia, which in turn reduces the amount of force the tyres have to generate to turn the car, has to help, doesn't it? This then increases the responsiveness of the car. It's why pretty much all road-going supercars and race cars now have their engines in the middle, mid-mounted. You must have heard that phrase, rather than hanging out the front or back as road cars do. It's to centralise the mass, lower the moment of inertia. So that's moment of inertia. Let's talk about centre of gravity. To many people, this is just about the way that a car rolls, and that with a high centre of gravity, the car is more likely to roll over. So a low centre of gravity must be better. And while this is largely true, it's only a small part of the reason you want low centre of gravity. Now, our cars have 4 wheels. Each of these wheels has a tyre on it, and it's these tyres that provide the grip. So although there are odd exceptions when biasing the weight to specific tyres can increase the overall grip, in general, the car will generate the most overall grip when all 4 tyres are doing as much work as possible, or at least as much work as they're required to do. Now, that's not necessarily evenly. It's why, after all, the rear tyres on buggies tend to be wider than the front tyres. But it's important that each tyre is contributing to the overall grip levels, and that the weight is not overly biased to one corner or another. So I should point out here, I keep mentioning weight when describing this because up to a point, a tyre will generate more grip the more weight placed over it. The problem is that it's very easy to ask too much of a tyre, and after that, it loses grip. So it's my belief that the more we can ask of each tyre, rather than just overloading a couple, the more we can do that, the more the overall grip level will increase and the faster we can go. So we all know that as a car accelerates, the weight effectively shifts rearwards. The amount this weight moves is determined by the rate of the acceleration, the distance or the horizontal distance between the rear tyre's contact point and the centre of gravity, and the vertical distance of the centre of gravity from the ground. The net effect of all this is that with all else being equal, a car with a high centre of gravity will have more rearward weight bias under acceleration. This in turn means it has less weight over the front tyres and could thus be more prone to understeer and so on. So the opposite of this, of course, occurs when the car's braking. Here, the weight effectively shifts forwards, reduces the amount of weight acting on the rear of the car, which in turn could lead to instability, slides, etc. So the same is true when you're cornering. The weight is effectively moved to the outside of the car, reducing the weight on the inner tyres, and thus reducing the overall grip that is available. So to summarise, to me, centre of gravity isn't just about reducing the tendency of the car to roll over, but about maximising the amount of grip that can be generated. So I've made a lot of generalisations here, and you could easily find exceptions to everything I've just said. But when you design a car, you have to start somewhere. And this is the premise around which the Fast Fox was conceived and designed. What we've done with the Fast Fox design is to take a standard car and just prioritise the areas that the conventional designers seem to ignore. They have their shocks right at the ends of the car, which increases the moment of inertia, and they are mounted high up in the air, raising the centre of gravity. But when we did this, we left the rest of the suspension design alone. In fact, we went out of our way to mirror the suspension characteristics of the standard car. And yet by just reducing the moment of inertia and lowering the centre of gravity, you will feel the difference. And we haven't yet spoken about the benefits that separating the dampers from the wishbones and using link rods and rockers to connect them brings to the equation. But we'll have to leave that for a part 2. This has already gone on long enough. So in the best YouTube tradition, let me know in the comments if you would like me to continue this conversation, and I'll see what I can do. Have fun.